Welcome, folks. 1, 2, 3. Start the recording.
Red, the button has been pushed.
There's no red button here.
3,
There isn't. There's got to be.
2, 1. And now 5 seconds of still silence for our editor. Hello and welcome to the Unredacted Reports. This is our post-season wrap-up. My name is Alondra Heilman. Some of you know me as Lady Bedivere. I am a cast member with Quests and Chaos. Tonight I am a very angry technical gremlin. And I am once again joined here for some inexplicable reason. I was invited back to introduce these rapscallions to you and answer some questions about season 4. So, rapscallions, let's get a quick introduction because we may have people joining us who don't actually know who they're looking at. We'll start over here.
Hi, I'm Ben. I'm the loudmouth rooster, as opposed to the other rooster that doesn't exist.
Dan Waszkiewcz, the handler.
Seth Jones, River.
I'm Joseph. I play Rory.
Tiana Hanson, I play Rowan.
It seems like it wasn't really that long ago that we were all sitting around this table, because it wasn't actually that long ago. I believe it was only in April that we were last here. Season 4 was a bit shorter than the previous season. But we are back, and despite the fact that it was fewer episodes, just so much has happened since then, and we're very excited to dig into that and answer some of your questions. That said, before we begin, a few house rules for all of you watching from home. I have a great deal of questions that were already pre-submitted, thank you. You are welcome to ask more in the chat, and I will do my best to grab some of those. Please put a big capital letter Q at the beginning of your message, or use those otherwise useless channel points to highlight it so that it's easier for us to see. But that said, please don't spam your questions. If it doesn't look like we're getting to it, it might be because I already have a question like it in my document. It might be because I'm saving it for later, or it might be because it's something that's not really appropriate to ask in this context, and you can, inquire later on Discord and see if some nice person takes pity on you and answers it when I'm not looking. Also, please keep in mind that while we have been granted clearance from ASL to debrief a good amount of what happens behind the scenes, there are certain things that are still unknowable to the human mind and unpronounceable by the human tongue, which we will not be able to discuss, mostly because it would be big spoilers for Season 5, and I am a professional killjoy and put a ban on those in this discussion. So, that said, speaking of spoilers, this is a spoiler-filled zone for anything that has happened in Season 4. So if you are not fully caught up and you care about spoilers, leave us on in the background for passive views, but turn the sound off and listen to us later once you've listened all the way through Interlude 4.5. Last thing, before I stop talking so much and let these lovely folks have their voices be heard, I would like to take a quick moment to thank a bunch of people who did submit questions, whether or not they are included here, including Red Dead Coquette, Pepper, Alex Alexander, and the Leaking Pen. I don't know if that's 3 different people or all the same person, so I bundled them together. Mama Bird Andrea, Claire, Sambit Misra, Leanna, the cast themselves, and our biggest MVP, Agent Harold, who went full academic and brought me a lot of joy. But thanks to all of you who have submitted questions and who have contributed to great discussions in the Discord throughout the season. We drew on a lot of that to come up with the kinds of questions that we're going to be speaking about tonight. And now, let us begin at the beginning, which was so long ago that even these folks went, oh, that's right, that was the beginning of this season. We have a couple of questions about Operation Hammerlock.
Well, Operation Spellbind, Team Hammerlock.
The entity known as Hammerlock in the notes.
Got it.
The pedantry has started early, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
You can keep a tally in the chat.
I referenced a lot of geekdom to get all
Yes,
those code
you
words.
did. Some of which I have private questions about, but I'm not going to bring up here. Dan and Ben. This patron-played game was developed by Dan with help from Ben to explore Rooster's backstory that led to him getting read in with Arcel. However, of course, being an actual play TTRPG, you can only plan out so much, even when you have a certain degree of predetermined end game. What was your starting point? So for this, I would love to know a little bit about the process of what, Ben, what you came up with and brought in developing that backstory, and then Dan, what did you take and run with? What did you bring to the table? What did you completely ignore? Those sorts of things.
So, I think it more or less started when we were doing the Memorial Day barbecue episode in season 3, and said, yeah, we're gonna put everything on the table and talk about how we all got into Delta Green. And I said, hey Dan, how'd Rooster get into Delta Green? What actually happened?
I have no clue.
Yeah, I said it was something in Afghanistan. And I had come up with these team name stuff for basically my own notes, because I have a very, very detailed chronology of his service record. And I came up with the idea, said, hey, we've got patron game coming up. What if we do that, since I don't know either what happened? And then Dan said, how do you feel about spiders? No, legitimately, because I am much better now, but I used to have a very serious phobia about spiders. It's legitimate. And I said, and we talked, and he said, no, just one big one. I go, okay, cool. I can handle that.
How big? I think how big was the question. I was like, a Winnebago size.
Oh, yeah. Because I was like, how big? If it's one big spider, and it's like, But yeah, Winnebago, that was the term.
And you created all of the characters, which was great, because I didn't have to make all the characters. And
I spent a lot of time at not doing work at work for that.
yeah. I'm grateful. So yeah, you handed me all these characters, which worked, and then just trying to get, because this was the first patron game, trying to get that scheduled and plotted and written, as well as doing the other stuff, as well as trying to keep the our regular campaign going was challenging at first. But when I finally got the idea, sharpened my hooks in the story and where I wanted to go. Almost everything I used that Ben gave me, we made a couple minor adjustments here or there, and then when we got the patrons on board and we plotted out the date, away we went.
All right.
And then after we were finished recording, I realized that the guy whose name on the Zoom was Price was J.F. Powell, I knew. Then I found out that his name was Jonathan, and I'm pretty sure I blew out my microphone yelling, what the fuck? Oh my god, I'm an idiot.
Yes, be forewarned. One of the dangers of being a fan of the Redacted Reports is that you might find yourself inside of it at some point.
Yes.
Dangers? Perks? Depends on how you look at it and how grotesquely you die.
That was technically his own fault.
No, it was very much his own fault, and he knew it.
Splatter, squish, gone.
He's not dead, as far as we know.
No,
That one's not.
Powell's not, but the
Anyway.
the dude that turned himself into pink mist.
But now, leading off of that, because I did want to make sure that we brought this up, so we started the season with the Hammerlock game, which was our first patron game. This is a perk for some of our patrons. Another perk that our patrons get is the Supplemental Case Files, which is a series of serialized stories that Ben has been writing, mostly about Rooster's past. And it coincidentally happened that we scheduled the most recent one called Evaluation, which was about Rooster's time after Operation Spellbind went south, after the events of the Hammerlock game, and getting into Delta Green, roughly, that time frame. That happened to line up and end up kind of being released almost parallel to the main season 4. So everything sort of like tied that story together. The question for you, Ben, was how much of the planning for Hammerlock and Evaluation happened together? Did one inspire the other? Did Evaluation come about because of Hammerlock? Were you plugged them at the same time? Kind of anything you could speak to on some of that?
I'd say correlation, not causation. That they both happened exactly the same time. I had this idea after I finished writing Safety On and then Knowing, which was mainly just fun. But I wanted to really explore, because they start for me, but really exploring what did Rooster go through? What is his backstory, basically? Whatever you think of that word. What happened to him? How did he handle all this stuff? And so I had this idea. What if this, he's getting evaluated or interviewed about his whole history? And then it just started building and building, and it's honestly probably the writing I'm most proud of that I've ever written. I'm really proud of that one. However, I knew by the time I was writing it that we were going to do Hammerlock as the patron game, which meant I didn't know what happened. So the finale of it was very much a insert description of patron game here. And then I sat on it for like 3 months. And then we played it, and I was taking notes during the patron game of the exact events in order of what they went down so I could go put it in. And then that timed out perfectly for my first major kind of edit rewrite, and sent it off to Agent Harold. And then it went out. So yeah, it was definitely odd.
Odd, but effective, it seems. And we heard from a lot of our patrons that it was very fun getting all of these stories kind of in parallel this season.
There's very little that's fun about evaluation.
Well, but you know that coming, you know that coming into Delta
Okay.
Brain.
Fair.
Fun wasn't the correct word.
Oh, no,
Again,
it's absolutely fun. I'm enjoying the hell out of it.
Dan,
Yes.
one more for sort of Hammerlock. If there's anything that you want to share with this, was there anything in particular that took you so entirely by surprise that it was difficult to really change the course of what you were doing? Again, you don't have to answer this in too much detail. I know a little of the backstory here, but
So not so much a challenge as to where things went where I couldn't get him back on track, because the idea is, you roll with the punches and you adapt. But I was not expecting take the shot and then the villager getting shot and effectively murdered right there. I was like, "Ooh, this went south
My
quick."
spotter said take the shot.
I'm not saying you were wrong. I'm just saying
a bad decision. It was just a decision.
it was definitely a decision, and it did escalate the story faster than I had planned. But I was okay with that. And it also gave a little bit more of a more credence, because granted, we're talking about spoilers, with the whole idea of Rosh being part of the Ravens. If you guys have all seen this, so
You were warned.
You were warned. If you're upset, you were warned.
And
So many spoilers, guys.
it gave Rosh the opportunity to have a reason to take these foreigners off to their deaths. Other than just that they were just here. They had murdered one of their countrymen, one of their villagers. So yeah, it solidified their what's the word I'm looking for?
Motivation.
Motivation. Yeah, motivation's good.
Wonderful. All right. Well, those were the specific questions that I had about Hammerlock, and so since that is a natural pause point, I think it's very important that we...
I did have one thing
Oh,
on Hammerlock.
absolutely.
yeah.
The Rory cameo.
Yes, talk about the Rory
Yes.
cameo and how that came about. I
would like-
apologize. I missed that note.
No, I think Dan, I don't know if Dan, you want to talk about how that, because you didn't plan that initially, right?
No, it wasn't planned that initially.
It was too perfect.
Yes, it was way too perfect. When Mr. Powell shoved his hand into the spider, and it got blown off, or it did not get blown off, but his hand got covered in the goo. And inside my brain, I'm going, "Oh, that's the black hand that Rory has."
Did you really come up with it at the moment?
Yes.
I heard it in his voice when it happened when I was editing. I heard that pause, and where I went, okay.
I think at the moment I was going, wait, is that? I think I was doing the same thing at the moment, so I didn't catch your hitch.
And I didn't have my notes for Rory's character's backstory on hand. And I'm like, you know what? I think the dates are different originally, but I'm gonna go with it. Why? Because it's too sweet. And when we ended the podcast, when we ended the recording with the patrons, reached out to Joseph. I was like, I need to do this scene with you.
I was like, okay.
And it changed some things in Rory's backstory.
Yeah, I think the main thing was the timing. I originally had thought it was recent in Rory's history, but it had never really been established. I'm like, yeah, sure. It can be around the same time.
Perfect.
And
it wasn't even me. One of you guys.
Yeah, but it was fun. I just got a message from Dan. I knew they were recording the Patreon game that day. It's like, hey, what are you doing? Like, I think you asked for like a recap of what I had revealed about Rory's backstory. Kind of threw that at you, and then yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, and a great way to start tying in the threads that would then immediately reappear with the proper beginning of season 4. But before we get to that, which we will momentarily, I think we need to take this natural pause point to look at one of the wonderful gifts that was sent along for us. Ben, can you please show us what you brought?
Yeah, so...
Or you talk, I'll get it.
Oh, okay. You might have noticed if you listen through the credits each time, which you should, that the entity some have called George has been narrated by our baby bard, who made us a poster.
Oh my gosh!
Happy season 4.
The corners are.
And we will post a.
It is here.
We will post a better photo of this on our Instagram tomorrow, along with photos of a variety of other things from tonight.
It's so beautiful.
The baby bard, by the way, being my almost 6-year-old son. My 2-year-old daughter is the barbarian for
obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we start them here early at the Redacted Reports, much to everyone's chagrin. Well, thank you, Zev, when you're old enough to watch this in 10 years. We appreciate it. And thank you for loaning your voice to the end of Season 3 and the end of our credits through all of Season 4. All right. I think that means we have to get into Downpour, the bulk of Season 4. And the place we're going to start is with Dan, of course. I know you're shocked, right? One of our lovely, wonderful longtime patrons is Dr. Christian Lehman, who has himself written for some official Call of Cthulhu modules and is involved with Call of Cthulhu and Delta Green. And some time ago, he and Dan got to chatting in the Discord, and he shared some of his notes and materials, I believe, from when he was writing for some Call of Cthulhu stuff. Can you talk a little bit about just how awesome that was, but also did that have any influence on this season?
Yes, that was fantastic. Well, apparently Dr. Lehman, who resides in France, carried on correspondence with the folks at Chaosium. And had sent letters back and forth, actual physical letters, not emails, because this is back in the 80s, when he was working on Horror on the Orient Express. And the letters were actually uploaded onto one of the many forums, and I think it's the Oxothoth forum, where they're at, and you can actually go and download and read the correspondence between Dr. Lehman and the guys at Chaosium. And it wasn't just all about the story, but it was also about European viewpoints and American viewpoints and different priorities. So I was able to get an idea of what they were building when they started off with the Horror on the Orient Express adventure. And if anyone is familiar with that, it is a gigantic campaign, multiple books, many, many, many books long. And
it ends in an explosion, right? Dynamite?
Depends on who's
Depends
playing.
on
who's running.
Who's playing.
As we all turn and stare at Thomas.
And Thomas pulls a Homer.
So there was one comment though where Dr. Lehman said something about prude Americans. And I was like, oh yeah, this is going in. This is definitely going in because I'm not in. But I don't really fit that mold. So yeah, that influenced it. And not necessarily in the way that you would think of being, with the prude, but because I wanted to tell a story that wasn't going to be a happy ending story. I knew that was going to happen because it's like, oh, hey, we're going to be in Afghanistan. And everybody just got pulled out of Afghanistan right when we started, right before we started to record. So international events played a big part in how I tried to mold the story and tell the story as best I could. I didn't want to fall into tropes or caricatures. I wanted to make sure that proper respect was given to the people that live in Afghanistan, and try to, not necessarily always have an American viewpoint on it, or the big evil white savior storyline that oftentimes gets wrapped up in. Even though we did have a little bit of that in the story, but that was not necessarily, it wasn't the feeling, and it didn't hit. So able to kind of scrub that a little bit more, at least to fit what I thought was more comfortable and just not less problematic, but just a little better.
And you also had access to some supplemental materials from Shane Ivey's Patreon. Did any of those play in as well?
Dennis Detweiler.
Dennis Detweiler, excuse me.
Yes, Dennis Detweiler, Shane Ivey's. I do belong to their Patreon page, and they are going to be having a book out soon, Iconoclasts, which takes place in the Middle East. Even though Afghanistan is not in the Middle East, it does have ties. So I was able to draw a lot of inspiration and mechanical information from them as well.
Great.
If I'm just trying to remember, didn't we, with the real world events in Afghanistan, didn't we actually discuss whether or not we really
So
want...
this is my next question.
Trust the moderator, my dude.
As I remind everyone at the table that I have been taking notes on everything you guys say in Discord for nearly 6 months. This is
My
actually,
fiddle bit.
This is actually also a question that came from Agent Harold. So I'm going to use a lot of her wording, but it kind of expands off of this point. If you keep dropping it, I will hand you something else quieter. Otherwise, you cannot fiddle with it.
Take some felt and play with it on top of that.
Given the setting and the subject matter of this season, there was the potential to run into sensitive issues, including sexism, racism, colonialism, and the military-industrial complex. Please talk through your processes with dealing for these issues if and when they came up. I also recall, because I think this was when I had just, spoiler for everyone who hadn't figured it out yet, started working for you guys back in season 3. I remember that you guys did actually ask on your Facebook, like, hey, if we're looking at going to the Middle East in a later season, is that something that concerns people? And you actually reached out to the fan base to see if everyone felt comfortable with that. But I'm going to, again, start by pitching this to Dan, and then if other people want to contribute, you can pop in with your thoughts on this. But how did you guys approach that? Was there anything in particular and special that you did to think about trying to avoid those white savior complexes and being aware of the complexities of being an all-white presenting, mostly male cast telling a story about the Middle East, or the adjacent to the Middle East?
I wanted to address both backstories for Rory and Rooster because they're important, and a lot of people, especially our age, have a connection to them. So I wanted to make sure that we got that story told and it didn't just go away, because it is a very important part of some people's lives. Besides both service members and their families, they were impacted by it, but also the people that live there as well. So I wanted to make sure that if we were to tell the story, that if we were going to actually follow through with the scenario called Gotti, that the audience would understand. And we polled everybody, and I do not think we received one no. Everything was pretty, pretty positive about going there, about telling that story. So that gave me the confidence to say, all right, let's do this. I tried to do as much research as I can using, Google, YouTube, all different forms of Vimeo, to get life in Afghanistan for locals, as well as folks that serve there, and not the necessarily the military romanization of what war is like there, but I wanted like real life things, and I wanted to present them in a way that didn't seem again like a caricature or like an action film. And yeah, I call it God. It was not an action film at all, because war is horror. I mean, it really is. But asking helped, and then also made sure that everybody here was all on board. And if somebody said no, I would have been like, all right, cool, we'll do something else. We've got a whole world to play with. But everybody got behind me with it, and away we, yeah. It worked out well. I do not want to romanticize the military-industrial complex, even though Delta Green does have its claws deep into, police actions and authority figures and military. I want it to be part of the story, not the story. So, or necessarily the only, hiding away the negatives, like the fact of dealing with the VA or dealing with military folks.
Does anybody else want to chime in on what it was like playing in this setting, how you guys approached, anything like that?
One thing real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm taking up a lot of time.
You're allowed to. You do the most research, so when I ask the research questions, it defaults to you.
So we do have one femme character in a country that is Muslim, predominantly Muslim, and they have they abide by Sharia law where heads are covered. I did not want to just hide that away with having Rowan not being able to talk to people, because there are still people there in Afghanistan as well as the rest of the world, women that are still keeping with tradition, but also bucking the oppression and trying to grow away from these things and for equality. I think that when it comes to how I present a lot of NPCs and family life, a lot of the stuff are the ideals that I would like people to live up to. Even though I want it to be realistic, I want the women in Afghanistan to have a voice and not just be washed away. That's why some of the NPCs were women that were very powerful and vital to the story instead of guys, because that was really important. So, but I didn't want to take the shine off of Rowan, because Rowan's fantastic, Tiana is fantastic, and so we have to keep get everybody involved and not push anybody to the back.
But to that point, knowing that we were going to Afghanistan, I knew that Rowan was going to get backseated a bit. And I was more than happy to play into that, mostly because the last 3 seasons have been a lot of Rowan. So it was like, okay, this is an area that I don't know anything about. This is a place that I have never been. And add on top of that if I as Rowan come in speaking, I'm going to discredit what my guys are saying and possibly undermine the entire mission. So it was very much. I didn't do a lot of like in-depth research on it myself, but I did like play off of the being a femme person in a very masculine world. That's just sort of the background radiation of life, and kind of honestly relished in being able to sit back a little bit and let my guys shine, because it was fun to watch y'all.
Mm-hmm. I have a quick question, actually, kind of going off that. Damn it.
You get one more.
I need a crocheted octopus. I should have brought it. I was thinking about it. I fiddle. This is what I do. I mean, that's your perspective there. Joseph and I had characters with ties to Afghanistan already. I'm wondering, Seth, what was your take coming in here? How did you approach that when your character didn't have ties or a specific situation like Rowan did?
I guess that I pretty much approached it like I I would like to think I would view it in a real situation is, okay, there's a lot of the things about, women's status and things like that I don't agree with, but you're in their country, you're in their house, you show them respect. And if you can't say something good, shut up. Now, I did make a little bit of a disparaging comment about Texas in there. So.
We're not all perfect.
I meant the whole thing, not just the issue or the situation with women, but in general with Afghanistan.
I did shoehorn you in. I was like, all right, there's an ecological disaster.
Yep.
Here we go.
Have fun.
Go push.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask the question so that I can take back the reins here before we get too far off my script. Because this is actually a question that it came up, is that there's a lot, this isn't the order I was going to do it in, but we're doing it now. There's a bunch of stuff in this module that is not actually in the written module. I have 2 copies of the written module sitting next to me. I have looked at them. I know other members of the team, now that they're done playing through, have looked at it. The ecological disaster was a little bit added and adjusted. The ravens were not in the original module. The creepy spider lady was not in the original module. Do you wanna,
Stop smiling at me when I
shut
shudder.
Speak a little bit. Get used to it. It's going to happen all night, baby. Do you want to speak a little bit to your choices to add those, where some of those came from? You don't have to get any more in depth than you want to, and please don't spoil anything that might play into later seasons. But
No, okay. So one, I think, because you never know with this group, but I think we're done going to Afghanistan. I think that's a pretty safe to say.
show of hands, real quick. Does anybody want to go back to Afghanistan in a later? Great.
So, I was not worried about, I'm not worried about, we're spoiling or going back. The idea of the ecological disaster is I wanted it to have the hook for River. Because otherwise River would probably say, oh, hell no.
Which is fully so.
Because he's smart.
Completely valid. Even if his friends are like, we need your help. No, war zone. Not a war guy. No.
And I would have spent the whole season saying, why am I here?
Yeah. So to throw in the idea of the poisoned water fit in well with the corruption. The rain and the monsoons is not in the module, but to get some kind of corrupted physical, like a corrupted, like natural thing, you should have running water. How do you get more running water? Monsoons. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, where we get tons of monsoons and we get flash floods. Afghanistan also experienced monsoons. So I stretch it a little bit and I say this is one of the wettest seasons that they've ever had, which is great. And poisoned water is now flooding down into the area. Cool, got that check mark. 3 Ravens, I'm in love with that song. Ed Randazzo and Brett Alexander are the gentlemen that performed the song. Their music is amazing. I went to high school. I went to grammar school with Ed. Grew up with him, and then after we got out of school, I learned that he became a professional musician, and I absolutely fell in love with his voice. If you guys haven't had the opportunity, please go give him some love on his website. Struggling musicians, we like to pay our artists.
We do pay our artists.
We do pay our artists.
And
yes.
also listen to the whole song, because there's a really cool story in that song. I could only really use the chorus because it was the only bit that was short enough to work. But the whole song is really great. Go listen to it.
And with because it's based off of a traditional folk song, like Twa Corbies
Yeah.
and 3 Ravens, and they just rewrote it in a beautiful manner. So the fact that 3 Ravens, all right, cool idea, cool imagery. What happens if those 3 Ravens could turn into people and harry people to their afterlife? Psychopomps. All right, cool, let's throw that in there. The spider lady, the big gigantic spider. The big gigantic spider, so in that area of the world, in traditional Cthulhu mythos, is an area called Leng, which is a whole another world. And one of the ruling classes are the spiders of Leng. And they're supposed to be big, gigantic, purple creatures. I figured, why not have it be this, old babushka lady that is, kind of quiet and caring and, a little cackling and a little creepy.
I didn't like her before she turned into a spider, for the record.
I don't think you were supposed to.
No.
So, gold shape. Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing, because I got a couple of different questions from people about where some of those elements came from and how much of those were pulled from local mythology. I think Sambit Misra, thank you, was asking about whether those were pulled from local mythology or somewhere else. Spiders of Lang, I know, was a big one that we had talked about.
The raven in Afghanistan history and mythology and some of their stories, and actually also in Islam, Cain saw a raven or a crow burying one of his own kind, and so that's in the Quran. They are seen as being messengers of the divine, good, bad, indifferent, but they're still messengers. And so I did take that from cultural stories, and tried to incorporate that in a way.
No, I think everyone enjoyed it based on the number of people who have been talking about it. So
People like watching our suffering. It's part of the story.
yeah, no, I'm putting a ban on scare quotes from here on out as well. People are here because they enjoy it and it's fun for them, even if it's a Schadenfreude kind of fun.
Schadenfreude.
Don't get us ban striked. All right, I have to talk about something else that wasn't in the original module, and it comes along with something that a bunch of people, both physically at this table and on screen, are going to hate, so consider this a content warning. Seth, could you please talk to us about the vacuum-sealed flesh lumps?
Here we go.
Oh,
I'm gonna let you and Dan take the lead on this one, because some of you might remember that the vacuum-sealed flesh lumps first showed up in, I believe it was the Idaho Green Box.
Yup.
Why did they come to Afghanistan?
well, I honestly don't remember all the steps that it went through, but we had this mention of somebody's bones having letters etched in them. I guess that was part of what you made up for the
Yes.
environmental disaster. And it might have, I think it was actually Ren who said, wait, is this the same script as those
I
things?
think I might have said that, yeah.
Bing. Yes.
So it's
yes, it
your
was.
fault. I was wrong.
Well,
Sorry.
I don't
Things
remember.
are that people don't know about.
I don't remember all the details, but we had both gone to the green box to look at stuff because
Yeah.
I remember thinking I wanted to bring some of those weird, creepy things in
Well,
and basically throw that at Dan and make him
well,
think on
if
the fly.
nothing else, we wanted, all the ammunition and stuff. I guess Breckenridge was
and language
providing
books.
some of that.
And language
but,
books.
Yeah.
Oh,
But it-
language books,
Wait,
that's
But
right.
it was...
Did we get the rocket back to our green box?
That's an off-screen question, sir. I remember what I said about spoilers, but I do remember very distinctly that I believe it was River who did ask the question, should I bring the flesh lumps?
Well, yes,
and
because-
the glee of Dan being like, you should bring the
Yes, I
flesh
mean, at
lumps.
some point it occurred to me, if we need these, we're not going to be able to come back for them.
That's true.
That's very true. It's
you're not
all the way
wrong.
across the world.
So,
And now, unfortunately,
we threw
I
them
must
in.
tell
and-
you
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
that
Oh no.
it's a good thing that you brought the vacuum-sealed flesh lumps, because now I have to suffer these with you.
It's got teeth! Oh god, it has a mole! And
Oh my goodness.
hair's coming out. Oh.
Mine's at home.
I will take a photo. Again, photos of everything that we have
So if-
received. will
They're
show-
squishy.
They're squishy, and also
There's bones in them.
there's bones in them.
My spouse is gonna look at this and go, what the heck?
Also, the
The
bones,
Baby, the baby Bart is gonna love it.
the bones inside them. If you decide that you want to cut this open,
No.
Nope.
do also have Brahmi script on them. Now,
Your very own cursed flesh lump,
So-
just for you.
Thanks,
Now-
I hate it.
you're welcome. Now, with that being said, also, because you know how we normally give away stuff, one of you guys is going to get one of these.
Yes, folks, that's right.
Yes,
We're
you,
going
the
to give
viewers.
away
are going to get a flesh lump.
A
Yours has
vacuum
warts.
sealed
Yeah,
flesh
they've got
lump.
warts and they've got pimples. Each one of these guys are unique.
I'll show you mine at some point. It's back at home.
Please don't.
Oh yeah, no, I'm gonna inflict this upon you.
Okay, so to be honest, they are gross, and I'm leaning into that fact, but they're also amazing.
And your friend,
Yes. These were crafted by Nathan Morrison. He is the owner and designer at the, they're calling it the Fox Den Contrivance. And he is available for commissions at counciloffoxes@gmail.com. And council COUNCIL.
We'll make sure to post this again in the Discord. I was going to try to have a command ready, and then we were trying to just get the internet. But yes,
If you look, there's even hair on them.
I saw that.
If you would like to enter to win your very own pet vacuum sealed flesh lump with which to horrify people this Halloween season, you can enter
Why am I beating you on the
#RCell in the chat. That's right, I changed it up on you to make you pay attention. That's the letter R, the word cell, RCELL.
And
We'll run that giveaway for a little while while we talk about some more horrible things that happened this season.
this is the letter that we did form Rooster's arm out of. Or form
Yep.
Rooster's arm into.
Yep, that's the one.
oh,
Now, do you want me to continue on this subject into the next phase, or did you plan to get back
That's going to
to
come up later in the season, but yes, you're on the right track. You know where this is going. But
I
we're
really
going to
didn't
circle
need this as a
back
fiddle
around
thing.
to that.
we found a fiddle thing too horrible for you.
But at least it's quieter than the bit. Well, maybe not with the plastic. We'd have to cut it open for that.
Okay.
Anyway, so you're welcome, and thank you, Nathan, for all of your horrifying hard work in making these as screen accurate as possible for our audio podcast. It is very much appreciated, and they are delightful in a terrible way. Sorry, I have to get back to the right thing because I had to switch over to Nightbot really quickly and make sure that the giveaway was actually up. It is. It's fine. The flesh lumps are not edible. Please do not eat these. Sorry, I just saw that in the chat. These are not graded for human consumption. Please do not put them in your mouth.
It is food grade silicone. That part is okay. The Sculpey that's inside the one that you'll be receiving, because one of them is not filled with Sculpey.
That one's not here. It's fine. Don't worry
about it. That one's a little bit different. But the human hair, though, the hair is human hair from a trimmed beard or somebody's chest. But so that part's right.
So
I'm taking mental note bets with myself on who asked that.
you can watch the callback later. It doesn't matter. You can technically put food on these and eat it off of them if that's your jam. Please do not put them in your mouth. Disclaimer. Also, continental U.S. shipping only. I don't think that made it into the command because I was doing these very fast while the internet was down. So, but anyway, yes, we'll run this giveaway for a little bit while we talk about some other terrible things, and then one of you can take one of these home so that we don't ever have to see it again. All right. So that was what we added to the module. That was the vacuum sealed. The number of times I've had to write the phrase vacuum sealed flesh lumps in the last 2 months is frankly horrible.
The amount of times that we've had to say it.
Yeah.
Yep. The number of times it's ended up in the various summaries. Ugh.
We specifically banned it from being a title because I didn't want us to have to take down all of those posts. So that's why it was called Alphabet Soup instead.
Alphabet Soup was actually an idea from TJ.
Yes, thank you, TJ, for not getting me banned on all of the social media. Let's change gears a little bit to something else that added into this module and added a very interesting element to this module. I'm going to actually combine this with a question that I hadn't written out correctly. But obviously we had 2 of our military veterans who were having to come back to deal with this military stuff. And it was compounded also by the fact that at the end of last season, Rory got a mental disorder.
That's true.
This is a mechanic in Delta Green where if you reach what's called a breaking point in your sanity, you get some fun little horrible thing going on in your brain weasels that you then have to deal with for the rest of the game. And yours took the form particularly of a sleep disorder. Can you and Dan talk a little bit about how you guys came to that, whose idea it was? If you want to talk a little bit about the mechanics of what you did with it, that's great. And how much of that, like particularly for you, Joseph, how much of that did you know about going in, and how much of it was just going to be I'm going to tell you to roll and then stuff's going to happen? So,
so initially it was my idea. I knew that when I hit my breaking point, I would have to come up with a disorder, so we kind of worked together. I'm like, okay, this would be interesting. Kind of ran it by Dan. And that was my input. The mechanics as written are, which you saw in the episodes, that before going to sleep, you make a sanity check. If you fail, you don't get a rest sleep. You can't regain willpower points, and all that. The visions was a surprise. I'll let you talk about that.
Well, you need a way to have you need a Deus Ex Machina sometimes to have to drop seeds and hints and tips and tricks, and what better way to do it than have somebody see it in a dream world? Also in Lovecraftian mythos or Cthulhu mythos. No, let's call it Cthulhu mythos because forget Howard. In Cthulhu mythos, there is the Dreamlands, and the Dreamlands are a very special place. There are lots of monsters. There are connections to Leng from the Dreamlands. Also, the name of your medicine is a location in the Dreamlands.
Not a real medicine.
Not a real medicine.
What was it?
Hashtag not
From
a
the
real-
pharmacist, not a real medicine.
We'll trust the one who spent a lot of time learning this stuff.
I can't remember. You know what? And right now it's escaping my brain.
Dan did ask me for a list, like, oh, what are some sleep meds that Rory would have tried? So I'm like, here's some sleep meds.
I work in pharmacy as well, not as a pharmacist though. I work on another aspect of healthcare. So I'm used to looking at medication names and having Joseph be a pharmacist. It was like, hey, here's some ideas. What can we use? And then we went from there. So, yeah, I needed a way to shake things up, and it shook things up.
Yeah, it was a fun added element to Rory, in addition to going back to Afghanistan where he got first experienced the Unnatural. It was just a fun extra element to it, and just the way it all unfolded was very interesting.
When I had this idea of this is how it's going to happen, I said to Ren, I need something with horses screaming in the world tearing apart.
Yep. Yep.
Which eventually prompted the comment from me, Ren, you're not supposed to actually tear the world apart just so you can record it.
Fun fact, that came on a really bad day for me, and it actually made me really teary because it was like, oh my God, thank you.
By the way, in case you didn't know this, Ren's awesome.
We'll get there.
I'll just be somewhere else.
Nope.
You have to stay here, but we do have the question about that where you'll get to talk about it, and I'll set the timer for you like I do for Ben. Don't worry. It's
Fair. Yeah, that's fair.
I'm trying to be good.
Yeah, but you keep interrupting me, babe. Dan, which came first?
The egg.
The psychopomps or the visions?
Psychopomps.
Okay.
The ravens.
The ravens came first, the visions came later.
Yep.
Wonderful.
Because if you didn't catch it in the story, they were in Rory's visions. Almost all of them?
Yes.
I think you saw all of them at least once.
I introduced them the first time when you were in the village. The first time is when they were in human form.
Yeah.
They did appear, and when you backed up, the tall one was behind you.
Yeah.
And I named all three of them. And I can only remember Rosh's name right now.
I mean, to be fair,
Javad was the
Javad
was the tall
one. I don't think the third one ever got name checked in
Oh, I guess we'll have to tune into season 14.
Yeah. Stick around when they finally go back to Afghanistan in 20 seasons when it's a totally different cast.
You just promised we weren't going back.
Well,
These characters.
Funny about Rosh's name, though.
yeah.
It was supposed to be a Rosh. Then people heard it as Rosh. Some people heard it as Raj, R-A-J, and no, it should be R-O-S-H. or it could be Rosh. Rosh, A-R-O-S-H. Either one I'm okay with because they both fit culturally.
I spelled it wrong in evaluation, but that works for Rooster.
Sorry, this is me scrolling because I lost my place while I was talking about flesh lumps.
As you do.
Nice part is these flesh lumps don't stink.
That is very...
And they also don't move on their own yet. I haven't checked it out yet, but...
Oh God, does it have an app?
We kind of already talked about this, but I will throw the ball to you real quick in case there's anything more that you wanted to say about... we've had 3 seasons that were very heavily dependent on Rowan. The whole team has always been a team. They've always been part of the team, but Rowan has very much been in a leadership role. And coming out of season 3, where the back half of that season was almost entirely driving to a resolution for what had been happening to Rowan in the sort of frame story. Do you want to talk anything about, as a player, your choice to kind of step back a little bit in this season? You kind of already talked about it, but...
A little bit. So I will say that from about the end of season 1 onwards, I started feeling really bad about realizing that Rowan was kind of the main character. That's not a scare quote, that's an unsure.
No,
because I fight very hard as a player against main character syndrome. It's very difficult sometimes. And the fact that a lot of the story was focused on season 2 was all about the cult that had imprisoned her, and season 3 was Idaho was the B story. The A story was what was happening in the intros and the coda, and then leading into everything. So yeah. So after all of that, I said to Dan that I did not want to have like a major role in it. But Rowan is still the leader. Mm-hmm. As long as Rowan is with our cell, she is the leader. And that is, she's delegating in this one a little bit more, where she's like, I don't know Afghanistan. I don't know military stuff. I don't know a lot of medical stuff. I don't know the ecological stuff. There were definitely a few times where, like, to go to Seth's point, Rowan was like, what am I doing here? Like, when we went into the village, I almost had the intro for that one, and it was going to start off, what the fuck am I doing here? Why am I here? I can't talk to anyone. I can't do the thing that I would usually do, and... my guys are hurting and there's nothing I can do about this. And that was very much where her head was at the time. And as a player, it was kind of fun to lean into that because it was a loss of control. And Rowan is usually very in control. So it was nice to kind of lose that.
Who's breathing?
You do the little gasp inhale before you're about to interrupt.
See, he's actually breathing and we could yell at him. I was not breathing that day and I got yelled at.
You
Sorry.
were. I went back in the record and I heard it.
A little bit of a glimpse behind the curtain that we'll get to when we talk more about how the sausage gets made after we talk about story things. But
by the guy there.
Tiana is very sensitive to the tics that everyone at this table has when they're about to start speaking or stop speaking or they're thinking while they're speaking. So if we're a little preemptive, that's why. We love you, Ben. We're sorry.
But you do the...
Everybody at this table breathes really loud, myself included, and we're aware of this. It's
I'm happy we're all
okay.
breathing.
We are
Breathing is important.
Get vaccinated.
Everyone together.
Yes. Get vaccinated.
In, out, get your vaccines. So,
I got boosted yesterday.
Woo! Okay, there may be other stuff that comes up as we go through, but I feel like it's time to just get to the elephant in the room.
Which one?
Ooh, buddy.
Episode 11. I even warned you about this one. Come on, dude. Don't steal my thunder. The season finale, and I call this the episode 11 episode, or question. It really started in episode 9, to be fair. Possibly even episode 8. It started when somebody decided that they were going to bail out of the caravan to take injured people back to the base, and then a second RPG had to get fired at the caravan. And then things just sort of spiraled downhill from there. Dan, do you want to say anything about that before I go on?
If you guys haven't figured out, I fucking love cliffhangers. Absolutely love cliffhangers. Okay, there is a reason for it. I want you to listen in next week. So you have to wait to find out until next week. So that happens. I purposely, sometimes it works out that way, and oftentimes I've done it on purpose.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Rory 100% would have gone back.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. It was great. And I was like, all right, cool. I'm going to shoot another RPG rocket at them. And that's where we're going to end this week. See you guys next week. And everybody was like, what? I'm like, So.
And you weren't expecting that at all, right? You were planning to just take people and go.
I was thinking through like what had happened in Rory's mind. Is like, okay, the two people that we came here with are gravely injured. I'm the only one that can maybe save them. I'm going to try. And then he did not.
But he did try.
He did try. He did try. He did not save them.
No.
Yeah.
But he did try.
Yeah.
That counts for a lot.
Yeah.
The worst part about the cliffhangers is that sometimes Dan will tell us thing resolution or answers, and then we have to think about it and sit on it for 2 weeks or however long it takes until we get to record again.
Oh, wow, you're so much nicer than I am.
But the thing with that is, it's kind of like in-character secrets. Most of the time, I don't really like in-character secrets. Most of the time. There are times when it does fit. But if you can tell your players parts of the plot and the story, they can feed into it, especially if they've got a good creative mind like these guys. All these folks here have great creative minds, and their brains go off. And they start thinking about things, sometimes overthinking things. And I'm okay with that, because when they sit back down, they're prepared for something, because they know something big is coming, and it's right around the corner, and we can run with it, instead of when you find out the next week and you're just like, I'm still stunned from last week. It's true. But.
Well, and also we sometimes make the mistake of theorizing in front of you, and you're like, bing, light bulb moment. Every time you see one of those in the Discord,
Noted.
someone has said something around Dan that made him go, ooh.
So that's what the hashtag SDGI is. Stop giving Dan ideas.
Yep.
Please, we implore you, on behalf of RSL, stop giving Dan ideas.
But also don't, because if you stop, then we run out of ideas eventually, and the podcast ends.
And I'm not above the fact of stealing ideas, stealing stuff. Steal from the best. They come out, yoink, it's mine. If you see me say something about noted, yes, I'm going to use that shit somewhere, somehow, some way.
No. I mean, I will keep saying stop giving Dan ideas because that's funny. But please give Dan ideas because he
makes
makes
awesome
wonderful
stuff.
stories from them.
Yes.
Oh, man. Yeah.
But all right, so to get to the finale, there was a whole lot that happened. This is probably the thing that we got the second most questions about, was just generally things that happened in this kind of, I'm calling it the episode 11 question, but it really, like I said, it started
the end game.
that whole end game sequence. I have specific questions. They're going to go in order to Tiana, followed by Ben, followed by Joseph, followed by Seth. And I'm letting you all know now so you know that I'm getting to you.
All right.
Because I have specific questions for each of you. And Dan, you can obviously popcorn in on whatever of these you feel like you want to contribute to. We are starting...
He's the handler.
We are starting chronologically with Tiana. Tiana, one of the big inciting things that kind of kicked off the big spiral, it had already happened. We got the reveal, of course, of Rosh being one of the Ravens, and the fact that the Ravens were the Psychopomps. Rooster lost his gourd, to put it politely, and this is one of the biggest moments that we saw Rowan kind of actually assert herself this season after spending a lot of it stepping back, because you took the little bit of brain shenanigans that you'd been playing with, opening yourself up to the Ravens and to the Spider Lady, and pushed yourself into Rooster's head.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about, if you want to backtrack and address opening to the Ravens and the Spider Lady too, please do.
Sure.
But I would love to hear about that choice that you made as a player and what you were considering in that moment and why you chose to go there in a sort of almost PvP way that is not very common in TTRPGs. Generally, it's the team against the NPCs, and this was essentially player versus player for a moment.
Yeah. So okay. I was thinking about where to start with that one.
There's a lot in this, which is why this is going to be a multi-segmented question for each of you.
That's very fair. Rowan has been working a little bit more with the brain shenanigans. She is aware that it could very well be dangerous because when you start listening, you start hearing things that you don't want to hear, both of what people think about you when they're not saying things out loud, and also if you open up to the universe sees that, and it gets entertaining. Not for the character, but for the universe. So she's been working a little bit with that just to gain control over it, because she's the sort of person who says, if I have a weapon that I don't know how to control, it's something that can be turned against me. And so she opens herself up a little bit when something seems hinky.
That's a technical term.
Hinky-dee-dee. And so she started in this season with the Ravens and went, oh, that sounds like a hellmouth. Great. These aren't just birds. And which sort of led her into the idea of the old woman of being like, well, if there are birds that are more than they appear, this woman appears to be more than she is. Yeah. But as far as the PvP element of it, in Rowan's brain at that moment, she didn't know anything about Rosh. She didn't understand what exactly the situation was. We had just said, literally, right before walking into the village, we do not start fights. Even if someone pulls a gun on us, we let them take the shot even. We do not start anything, and hell, if necessary, we don't even finish it. So she's looking at that situation, and then her sergeant has just lost his shit. And he's not listening to her. This is the only time that she has ever pulled the verbal leash, and he hasn't listened. Uh-huh. So in that moment, she was like, there's stuff going on in this room that I don't understand. There is power here that is beyond my comprehension, and if I don't stop him, we are all going to die. There was a line that went through my head at one point where it's like, I would rather you be alive and hate me than all of us dead. And that was very much where she was, where it was like, no, you are going to stop, whatever it takes. And it didn't work exactly, but it certainly got the point across. And most of what pissed her off about it was he stopped for a second when she said stop, and then went back into it. And she's like, at that point, that's not a reaction anymore. That was a choice, and fuck you. Fuck you for doing that. Not you, obviously. I know. But it was like, you put us all in danger for some personal bullshit, and fuck you for that.
Normally, when it comes to player-character conflict, I don't like PvP, like character. No, I don't need that on my table. Yeah. But at that point, that drama was good, because it may have felt like PvP. It really wasn't. It was just a friend yelling at another friend, but doing it in a special way. You know, in a side blast.
Special way when two friends.
That's the fanfic.
We've seen that.
But you know, I don't like PvP at my table.
Yeah,
because you're all my friends, and I don't want to see my friends fight, even if it's like, oh, we're going to do an arena thing. Whatever. I don't want that. I want us to tell a different type of story. But at that moment in time, granted there was conflict there, but it was not. I knew it would not devolve to individual feelings being hurt.
Yeah.
Because it was character. You know, I think that Rooster's reaction was definitely valid. It made sense to me. Rowan's reaction to Rooster, perfect. And then Rooster being like, no, this is deeper than where you're at. I thought it played out well. I do think that if it had gone beyond that, then we probably would have called a stop to it, because and all right, let's reassess. I've said this before. When we record our podcast and our story, it's recorded. We have that luxury. If there's something that is not right amongst us, we'll pause. No big deal. We'll do that. We'll come back. Maybe we'll re-record something.
And we have.
Yes.
There are several things that listeners will never hear because one of us looked at it and said, this doesn't work. This isn't right for whatever reason, all sorts of reasons.
Yep.
Didn't work. But so episode 11 was all one recording.
Mm-hmm.
We actually finished the previous one on 10. We had to sit with the Rosh thing for we didn't even know who it was. He told us afterwards who it was, but we didn't know who it was really. We had to sit with that for a week. But I told Dan that if Rooster didn't listen, and it was very possible that he wouldn't, that Rowan would lash out like that. So he had warning. I warned Ben as well.
Oh yeah, you warned me.
Yeah, I did say, because it was not a spur of the moment decision. It was something that it was like, if she is pushed to this level, this is the action that she will take. And both the player and the handler knew that, and if either of them had been uncomfortable with it, I would have been like, she'll find another way. That's fine.
The Abrea Iyengar flowchart of actions, where you make a flowchart for if X, then my character Y, but if Y, then my character Z.
Exactly.
To make your decisions. Does it relate specifically to the pushing into the head?
Yes.
Okay. No, I was just checking before I switched topics because I had a good segue, but so continue.
Okay. I was just gonna say that was the biggest thing there for me was that both sides in that were 100% valid.
Absolutely.
And that I realized after the fact, because I had to sit there for a week. I was talking about cliffhangers where we know it. He told me that was Rosh, and I was like, fuck.
He told all of us. It was on the recording. I
know.
took it out and deleted it because the listeners didn't need to know that.
But so that was a very specific. I knew that this was one of the only things in the world that Rooster would go against a direct order from his LT for. And knowing that, I was expecting, when you warned me what it would be, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And Rooster also would have probably leaned toward her side after the fact if he didn't have bigger things to worry about right now.
Well,
I mean, heat of the moment is heat of the moment.
Absolutely.
And thank you. This actually, I have to break from my sequence of things because I realized that this is the perfect segue to address something that we need to talk about before we talk about what the boys did, which is something very near and dear to my heart that I am vocally obnoxious about, which is safety tools. This is something that Redacted Reports has always been very public about, to the point where all the way back in season 2, we released some outtakes to everyone there was a safety check-in after a particularly heated episode of in-character conflict where there was a check-in. This season, huge spoiler alert, spoiler warning, if you haven't listened to the last episode, this is your last chance, leave now, come back later. A bunch of really major things happen in the last episode, which we're about to talk about, that required some safety check-ins. And I specifically want to start with Dan and Seth talking about the check-in that you guys had, because I know Seth has expressed some very specific things. And you can talk about this in as much or as little detail as you want to. But Seth has some very specific things on his X-Card Lines and Veils list that Dan is aware of, and they had to talk about that. Can you talk a little bit about at least the process of checking?
One real quick before.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not trying to jump in. I have a checklist, the RPG checklist, which I'll see that we get it uploaded for everybody to use. And it has things that are green means go, yellow means, hey, let's stop having a conversation. Red means I do not want this in the game. I send this out to everybody that I play with. And I had everybody sent them on back. We went a couple seasons. I kind of asked for them again. We got them back, updated, because people change, and there are things that we may go into that you didn't realize that was weirding you out or a no-go until it might have come up. So we did get updated ones, but sorry.
Yeah, and so one of my no-go things is certain things mainly to do with surgical procedures. And it's hard for me to put into words exactly where the line is on that.
Which is super valid.
And a couple times in this season, Dan came pretty close to my line.
And ask, is this okay? There have been times when I had some ideas in mind, and I'm like, hey, can I talk about this in this vague, or is this a little too specific? Without going into details to cause trauma, because that's not cool either. But I think we got close. Maybe we might have crossed over once or twice, but...
Yeah, I mean, I think there was at one point where we got to a pause, and I made a comment about, can we not go any further with this?
It's one of the visions.
Tone it down a little bit.
Yeah.
It was one of the visions. That's right.
I'm not going to explain what it was, but I remember.
Well, I can say in general terms one point was cutting up the flesh lumps.
Sure.
And the other part was examining the shepherd's foot.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, because to respond to that, sometimes you don't know where the line is until you get right up to it. I personally have this joke that I notoriously have no X card, but I reserve the right to use one if that ever changes. And I think you guys do a really great job of making that really clear and having good communication amongst yourselves about that. And now that we've talked specifically about that...
Can I say just one more thing?
Absolutely.
We've talked about, the X card and how, it's a thing, we should be aware of it, we should use it. For somebody like me, especially, and I think for a lot of people out there, you're not used to speaking up for yourself. Actually, playing that X card is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
Because if you do it, you're going to feel like, oh, I'm ruining the game for everybody. I'm glad that we got to as close that we did, so we could have the safety checks and the people saying it's okay to push back and say let's not go there, and to actually experience that.
Nothing in the story that we're telling or in the game that we're playing is as important as your friends' feelings and mental health, right? So I try, one thing I really like to do, especially in our situation, because I live far the fuck away in Arizona, we do play with Zoom on, and then I like to see everybody's faces. Because there are times when I might be able to pick up on, subtle body movements and, body language in the instance of seeing somebody actually having an issue. Or not even necessarily an issue, but just still wanting to say something but don't. So
well, I know that at least one point I was trying to give you a hand signal like this.
Yeah.
And I hope you picked up on that.
I try. If I don't, I'm sorry, but I try.
I mean, if it was getting to the bad point, I would have done more.
The reason why I giggled earlier is because I anthropomorphized the smell of the flesh lump and the tendrils attacking.
I was so jealous of that as a writer.
I was happy with that one. I was off the cuff. I like that one. Sorry.
No, you're fine. No, but I want to just blanket, thank you from me and from the chat and the listeners. We're getting a lot of responses to this. Thank you guys for being open to talking about this, because I think this is a thing that a lot of players, a lot of podcasts wouldn't want to talk about, because it ruins the illusion that everything is, improvised and off the cuff and whatever. And I don't mean to isolate anybody specifically, but thank you specifically, Seth, for being willing to talk about it. But I'll do it anyway. Thank you for being willing to talk about it, because I know it's not an easy thing, and it shows also how much you have grown as a podcast, that you have reached a point where you're not only aware of each other's limits and concerns, but that you not only feel comfortable check in with each other, but you also can feel comfortable say, we need to take a time out, we need to pause this, whatever it is, and discuss that. And I think discussing things and that finding that line between what is improvised versus what is planned and what is talked about beforehand versus what happens in the moment is important. And leads into the next piece of, again, the massive spoiler warning, where we're going to talk about all the stuff that happens at the end. So now we're going to go over to Rooster. Let's start with the big front and center one before we get to some of the more subtle ones that I think got a little bit ignored, but I think are equally impactful. Rooster had a really blatant and obvious consequence in the last episode when he lost an arm. That is going to come with some very drastic mechanical changes for how you play the character, in addition to a lot of emotional roleplay components, which we've already started to see in the interludes. So now that we've had this kind of discussion about safety tools and limits, can Ben and Dan, can you guys talk a little bit about how the choice to have Rooster lose this arm kind of came about, some of the check-ins that you did, and how that was or wasn't addressed to the other players before that scene happened?
So, the point where Rooster is in the interludes, I've known for at least 3 seasons I wanted to take him there. Because he was brash and cocky, and I wanted to see the depth of the character and see what happened when he was deconstructed and had to rebuild. Dan knew that, and we had talked a while ago that he knew I wanted to take the character there at some point. And when you said we're going to Afghanistan, you said this is when we're going to do it. It wasn't until like a week or 2 before we recorded the final episode that you came to me privately and said, what do you think about Rooster losing an arm? And I said no.
Yep.
Because mainly I was worried because I knew that Rooster would react to that in very ableist ways. And there are still a couple times in the interlude where he uses words about himself that I would never allow people around me to use towards other people. Dan convinced me. He said, you know what, you're right. And because of that, I think we can show the growth and the knowledge and tell a very non-ableist story about it, and using this as a way of showcasing disabilities and people growing and thriving with it. And I said, God damn it, you're right. Okay, we're going there.
I laid out a few more spoilers to him, a few ideas of where I would like things to go. Rooster has hit one note really, really well. And I know that Ben could play more diverse characters and more diverse ideas and hit different emotions other than I killed things, I smashed stuff over the head. That's okay, some people can do that, but I know...
Failed high school, blah, blah.
Yeah, and I know that Ben could play more, and I know that Rooster has so much more story in him that he is just more than the hired gun. Even though Rooster feels he's only just the hired gun. And we can get that out of him. But we have to do it in a fairly sensitive way. Modern war has changed our veterans. In previous wars, guys that came back missing arms and legs, most of them didn't come back. There were a lot of folks that died. But due to modern medicine, we have more folks that are multiple amputees now, or have other issues, that they're bringing back from the war. And those stories are just as heroic in the aftermath of how do I go back into a new life with these new challenges. So we've got new challenges for Rooster coming up. It's not going to always be pretty and smelling like roses, even though I know that some people have said that, oh, Dan, you're too easy on your players. None of the players are dead. There are things worse than death. But also in this, I want us to tell good stories. And I think that we can tell a fantastic story. Maybe make some mistakes here along the way have Rooster make some mistakes. But as we found out with the interludes, I wanted to break Rooster.
And again, I've wanted to break him for a while, but it needed to be done well.
I'm not entirely sure he knew I was going to break him down that hard.
We talked about it quite a bit.
Yeah, but initially, then like, oh no.
Oh, originally,
you're even going to lose your gym membership. Ain't that a kick?
Oh no, it was the Costco one that hit. That bill, because no. This was a weird one because it was a weird thing when you mentioned the Costco bill. There was this weird thing that hit me. Weird, I remember.
We'll save the side question about what is Rooster buying in bulk at Costco aside from energy drinks for later.
Cheese
But
puffs.
The thing that hit me the hardest is Rooster picking up the video game controller. Like it gets me now where I get a little bit of caught up because I personally use video games to escape and to shut off. I'd rather play a video game than watch TV. You know, and to lose that ability, it's just like, oh, fuck. That part hit me harder than the second interlude for him.
That's why I pulled that one, because I do the same thing. And at an earlier time in my life, I remember in middle school or high school, one of those, would you rather lose your hands or your feet? And I remember saying straight up, my feet, because then I could still play clarinet. And so I was leaning into that one. But minor aside, I want to just take the moment. I learned some things since recording this that I wish I had known a little bit about to pay homage to. One is the reality of all our veterans with burn pits, which the PACT Act finally was signed. Yes, I'm getting real political, but this is legitimate, real stuff.
That's fine.
And also a real person that I learned about who I was really inspired by was Command Sergeant Major Gretchen Evans, who absolutely amazing, inspiring story of this woman who, if you don't know, Command Sergeant Major in the Army is the single highest rank you can get without being an officer. It's basically on par with being a general if you had started at lieutenant. But she's very open about her PTSD and suicide attempts and deafness, also what she got and what got her through it. And reading about her really helped me get into Rooster's head a lot. So I wanted to pay homage to that. Again, as someone who's not military at all in my real life.
But I think this is good, and it shows the depth of the research and care that you guys are going to look into stuff like this. And I know that you say, like, I wish I'd known more about this before. We've only had our missing Rooster for one episode, so there's going to be plenty of time for that to come in, and it already shows the care you guys are taking to look to that going forward. But before we get too far forward, I know everyone's itching. I'm going to make you stay through the whole show to find out about what happens next. I am going to take a brief moment, and I'm so sorry that this is going to not go out to all of the viewers right away. You'll have to wait till tomorrow. But I need anybody who's near a device at this table to take a quick peek into, or over someone's shoulder, into the Redacted Reports private chat. Because this is a photo that I got from our beloved dead boy. He has been sitting on this secret for weeks, and I have been plotting with him to share it with you so we could get your reactions on screen. This is his red rocket cane.
Wait, that's actually
the decals are on the way, and it will have racing stripes and flames in honor of the Redacted Reports, because all of his financial aid came through. And since we were talking about AIDS and
yes, awesome.
yes, a lot of the stuff came through. So We're
Yes.
so grateful to hear, Dead Boy, that so much of this stuff is working out for you. You've been one of our biggest fans and supporters.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing this with us and for entrusting me with your secret to reveal it to everyone live on camera, because I've been waiting for weeks for this.
That is absolutely wonderful.
Amazing.
Love you so much,
Seriously.
buddy.
Yes.
So,
And ping me, I owe you some tennis balls for this.
and again, for everyone who's in chat, we will make sure that this gets posted in the Instagram tomorrow with a roundup of all of this crazy stuff that's happening tonight. Now, to go back to all of the horrible things that Dan did to ourselves at the end of the season.
Actually, I'm quite happy with this, so I'm not
You
gonna lie.
shouldn't. You shouldn't be upset about this.
good.
This is very good.
Can I say one really quick thing about that?
Really quick.
It was really weird because after like a long time period of the stuff with EOD, part of me coming into this one at the end of it was like, wow, how is that so big? It was so quick. And then I'm like, no, this happened. No, that was big. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But it was just an interesting perspective of between listening schedule versus recording schedule.
Yes, that's a fun thing that I'm sure we'll probably talk about later when we talk more about mechanical stuff. But first, so Rooster lost an arm, and that sucked. And then
Yes, very.
this episode reached a culmination of Rory's hallucinations, taking him beyond just a temporary blackout to a full-blown seizure as he once again ripped the world apart and put it back together, I think multiple times at once,
As
or
he
something like that. Was there, this is a little bit of a combo question of my question and some questions I think we got from some of our viewers like Alex and Agent Harold. Was there always a plan for these visions to escalate to that point? Was it something that was just part of the dramatic narrative flow in the moment? How much of this was always planned as a mechanic for part of the end game? And Joseph, too, speak to like what it was like getting this, since you didn't really know the visions were coming, you just knew about the sleep disorder. What was it like for you as a player having to piece together all of what you were seeing and slowly learning what you were actually seeing and what that meant when you got to that end game of like, oh, here's what we can do. This is awful. I'm going to take my friend's arm and turn it into...
It's fine.
Can somebody hold up a vacuum-sealed flashlight again, please, just to make sure everybody has to suffer with me? Thank you. Anyway, Joseph and Dan.
He had told me basically that it's Rory seeing the world in the aftermath of a nuclear explosion on December whatever day it was, 2011.
No day, it didn't happen.
Yeah, well, it happened for... Yeah, I knew that much about the visions, but then slowly, by the end of it, it was like actually learning stuff that I could then pull out and use and be like, I'll explain how I know this later, but... so yeah, that was what I knew and kind of how... for me, I expected there to be less than just kind of him phasing out for a second. I thought it would be the seizure thing, something more similar to that every time. So that kind of surprised me that it didn't go that far sooner. So I don't know how you want to talk about the escalation.
So the in-story reason for the escalation is because he got closer to an eldritch power. And as he got closer and closer to the eldritch power, they got stronger and stronger and stronger. The real reason was Dan needed to drop some hints. I needed to drop hints as to how to get things done. I was prepared. I did have, contingencies, because it's what you do. You have contingencies, especially with these fuckers. Almost got that one too.
That wasn't even close, but I appreciate the effort.
Have contingencies for, how would they know to put the bones into the altar at the end, right? Without Rory telling them. I was gonna have, maybe somebody go up there and start scraping at the wall madly, exposing it.
So mean to poor Ellis.
Yeah. And have that be the one of the ways across to do that. Like, no, I'm just gonna give it to Rory and let Rory, determine, is this real or is it not? And if it is real, cool. If it's not real,
That evil giggle.
And if it's not real, insert evil chuckle.
Yeah.
Insert noted.
the
Some of my world work life used the word noted on Slack. I said blah 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 noted.
Yes. Yeah, it was really just a way to feed hints and ideas into the player group.
Yeah.
And do it in a way that would be kind of creepy. You know, why are you having us dig at this blood-encrusted altar and having to remove all of the weird grossness so we can shove this in?
I was trying so hard not to think about what the altar was covered in. Thanks.
For me, the interesting part about it was that Rory didn't tell anyone that he was dealing with this. He kind of he almost told Rooster, and then they had to leave, and then it basically all happened like after the end of the episode. But I think that was just how Rory dealt with it, and it's interesting to see the comparison with how everyone in Arcel deals with stuff like that differently. Like Rooster going back to Afghanistan was just being a pouty baby.
He was the whole time.
Here's your one. You're not wrong.
Not wrong.
Just the way.
Here I was about to say that Rooster and Rory finally had their heart-to-heart moment we've been trying to make happen
We've been
since
trying
Big
to
Sky.
We've been trying to have a scene with the two military boys for forever. We
I did
finally
like that
got
scene
them.
a lot.
No, not anymore. Not now that he's a pouty baby. Fine.
Just like the way Rory and
Pass fire.
the way Rory and Rooster dealt with coming back to Afghanistan just was very interesting to see the way they did not do it the same way.
Yeah.
And then the way Rory just did not tell anyone that. By the way, I'm having visions and seeing things until just like, at the end he kind of had to tell everyone what was going on. Like, Rowan, I promise I'll explain, but I know this. Don't ask me how I know this.
It made sense that they had their ways too, which was kind of
Sure.
cool. Like Rooster was very much just nope, from the second Rowan said the word Afghanistan, and Rory was just like, oh yeah, everything's cool. Yeah.
On the outside.
No, I'm fine. Yeah.
Well, and again, I think that speaks to the fact that you guys are trying to play real people and not just archetypes, and you're also not trying to glamorize the as somebody at QNC likes to call it, the military porn aspect of what some DG modules can become. So it's kind of nice to see the contrast of I have to just let it out and I can't keep it together versus I can't tell anyone because then I'll lose it. So I thought that was an interesting take.
My roommate would come to me after Wednesday listening, and he'd be like, I love Rooster. Such a whiny bitch in this episode. Absolutely love Rooster. Rory is my favorite. Rory's got his shit together, but I bet he's breaking inside his brain. I'm like, I ain't saying shit to you. Just sit back and watch.
Good job, buddy.
So, yeah.
Funny how you only ever told me the first half of that.
Well, yeah. Well, it's because we're only talking about you. But
No, I meant the first half of the stuff about me.
well, no, they love you. I love you. I love fucking Rooster. I love
Little
I
whiny
love
bitch.
Yes.
Exactly. I'm calling it that now.
Two things can be true at the same time.
These are not mutually exclusive items.
Anyway, but that was an interesting, and obviously, as again we will get to shortly, that final break and that putting together of all the pieces of what you were seeing and why you were seeing it or what it had to do with really led to some incredibly drastic consequences for Rory. Maybe a little less vocal and a little softer than some of the other characters, but certainly some drastic choices that had to be made in the aftermath of that. But before we quite get to that, I will keep just teasing this carrot along for as long as I'm able. There's one more major thing that happened at the end of episode 11 that I feel like got a little bit overlooked, but I want to call out because it was the thing that I immediately latched onto, which is that the mechanics of deactivating the altar required a massive amount of personal sacrifice. Obviously, some of it became physical, but a lot more of it was mental. And we saw River take a shocking hit to his willpower in order to complete the ritual. There was a set amount, and River took the bulk of that onto himself. Was that, how did I phrase it? Because I'll read it better than I'll come up with it in the moment. We saw River take a shocking majority of that load onto himself, thus allowing Rory and Rowan to hold on to a great deal more of their remaining willpower points. Was that just a glorious team-driven impulse and instinct in the moment by you, Seth? Or were there other, like, considerations behind why you chose to do that? If you even have anything to say on that.
I didn't feel like it was a difficult decision at all. I mean, willpower is like hit points in D&D. You get it back when you sleep.
Brilliant answer.
I mean, seriously, I mean, I wasn't thinking about how much willpower to spend. I was thinking about how much should I keep in reserve? And it was either 1 or 2 points.
Enough to not pass out.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of forgot or skimmed over the rule that says when you hit 2 points of willpower left, you kind of have a meltdown. You don't actually pass out at that point, but you kind of become ineffectual.
But who wasn't having a meltdown at that point?
Yeah, as
to
it
be fair?
happens, it kind of worked out on its own that way. But so I decided. The other thing was, you know, I don't know how much willpower the rest of the team has.
Because the two of us had lost some from not sleeping.
But I have.
Rowan spent some to push into.
No,
Yeah.
I didn't.
No, she took mine away.
I inflicted psychic damage.
Ah, got it. I apologize.
Yeah, I mean, River has tons of willpower to start with.
It's true.
And
Oh,
because he's built as the guy who's going to learn magic.
Right. Wizard. Yeah. Wizard.
wizard!
River is built to be the wizard.
I knew Rooster was totally out of it. I knew Rory was low on willpower because he didn't sleep and he's been taking some hits on it. I didn't know how much Rowan had, but I have heard comments before that Rowan is not as particularly high POW character.
Yeah, 11, if you're ever curious. Mechanically, she has 11 willpower at her best.
So I knew that I was going to have to take the bulk of this.
And which
So
means
it was,
knowing your
I'm going to
character.
take as much as I think I can survive.
Yeah.
One of the things I convinced the group to get me, that was purchased as a group for me to research, is the Grimoire book from Call of Cthulhu.
There wasn't much persuading necessary.
He tried to ask us, and we just said, yeah, get it.
So, yeah. So I got lots of cool toys, and I saw one, I was like, ooh, that takes up so many willpower points. How many then pull up character sheets. They're like, nope, can't do that. Can't do that. Oh, they can be combined. By our powers combined, y'all are fucked.
Whoa, bad shit.
Oh boy. Yikes.
Don't beat up the microphone.
So, yeah.
Well, that was episode 11. Now I have to do something highly unprofessional and do a quick check-in with our producer. Are we good to go for another half hour, sir? Great. I just wanted to confirm. We started a little late. We had a very strict timetable because some people have an early morning, so I wanted to make sure we're clear. So that's your answer. We're going to go for about another half hour, maybe a little less if I can get everybody to like speed through things. We'll just see which questions come up next. But that takes us through the season. This was a wild season. It was very different from a lot of the previous seasons, which is a good thing. It shows different aspects of the characters, different growth, and I think gave the guys, as Tiana refers to them, a good chance to shine. Now we're going to do a very brief rapid fire round. Rapid fire round means you don't get to think about it too long and you basically get one word answers. We're just going to kind of popcorn around the table real fast to create a little bit of a transition. And then we're going to talk about a couple of like the fun behind the scenes things, and then we'll talk about what happens next. I know you're all waiting. You still have to wait. This is the only carrot I have to dangle.
What happens next?
Programming question. Giveaway?
Giveaway. Do we want to roll one now, or do we want to just announce the second one and roll them both at the end?
Let's do one now.
Let's do one now.
All right.
Let's get rid of these.
We're gonna roll.
We're not.
for
You can't get rid of it.
We're gonna roll for the flesh lumps, but I'll go ahead and tell you.
Step outside just for a quick second. I will be right back.
Okay, great. This is perfect time. We're going to roll the giveaway for the flesh lumps, and as soon as we do that, I'm going to start a second giveaway, which will be for a signed copy of the Caligati module. It is a physical copy of the Caligati module. It will be signed by all of the lovely folks at this table, sans myself. And again, anyone in the Continental, please don't move. Now I'm going to have to adjust the camera angle. Stay on your mark, sir. Anyway, so I am going to go ahead and roll for that. Yeah, sure, go for it. Dead boy!
Oh my god!
We're sending you a disgusting flesh lump to go with your new mobility aids.
Hang it from the cane! Hang it from the cane!
I swear to God, this was not rigged. I did not even wait it for subscribers. This was just a flat-out random roll. Congratulations, dead boy. I'm so sorry for whatever curses are about to be imposed upon your house.
These things are amazingly gross.
They're very disgusting.
I'm having issues.
You think it's not rigged, but Nightbot is an eldritch being.
That I actually do believe. I'm
I
pretty
do
sure
too.
Nightbot is an eldritch god. That's disgusting. All right, give me one brief moment. Here, let me give you a popcorn question to answer while I reset the giveaway for the next round. On a scale of 1 to Ophelia, who was your favorite NPC this season? Give me a name, and you can give me like one sentence of what makes them stick out to you. This is a question, I believe, from Agent Harold. We'll start at that side of the table and just kind of go around.
Gina Graham or Jake Green?
Jake Green, the guy that helped us with the flesh lumps.
Yeah. Gina Graham, because I really love how she was the no-nonsense go-getter who made things happen. And Jake Green, because who doesn't love someone going insane that we caused?
It has teeth!
Boy.
I think Jake Green as well. He just was. Rory was like mentally trying to be like, all right, just let's get this contain this guy so he doesn't like blow our cover and like all these things. Just a little bit of himself in Jake Green, I think.
Sure. Him or Andrew.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
I know.
Andrew's been around. He was not an exclusive NPC. We're talking season 4 exclusive.
Yeah.
He's
so that's why like
favorite.
Jake Green, I think, reminded Rory a little bit of himself and Andrew and his immediate fascination with everything.
Oh yeah, no, that was what I meant, was that Jake Green
Yeah.
reminded him of Andrew
Oh,
specifically.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Sorry, divided.
So on a
No
scale
worries.
of 1 to Ophelia.
yeah,
Ophelia is hard to beat
Yeah.
though.
that's why that's.
Who was your favorite NPC?
Okay.
Yeah, we're just doing a popcorn round
Yeah.
while I reset the giveaway. So, Seth, do you have a favorite?
Doug Bull.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Because Rain, and we need to tell
controls
people about Huey.
Yeah.
So I wrote it down here earlier, and I've been telling Dan, tell the story.
I had a very specific note that Dan gets to choose if we talk about that or
Yes,
not.
we do.
So if you want to talk about it, now is the time.
So Doug Bull is based off of Doug Bull is was a friend of mine. Somebody I grew up with, playing basketball with. He joined the United States military, United States Army, after 9/11, and went in, did some tours in Iraq, and then switched his career. He became an explosive ordnance disposal guy. The guys that go out and find the bombs for people.
The other EOD.
Yes, the other EOD. Sadly, he found a bomb the hard way. He was killed in a roadside IED explosion. And I got to play him, I got to tell his story a little bit. And there's a part with, I got to send him home to his kids.
Yeah, that was something that was said fairly early on. The rest of us might die, but Doug Bull will go home.
That was the moment we met him. You said he will go home if I have to airlift him out.
Yep.
Yep.
And thank you for sharing him with us. So,
If you don't mind the time, I would like to talk about Huey a little bit.
Yes,
absolutely.
please.
This is a story that came to me from my father, and it came to him from a friend of his whose name I unfortunately don't remember. But my father was a avid hiker, and he went hiking with this fellow. And this fellow had previously had a hiking buddy named Huey. And they had an inside joke that every time they went hiking together, it would rain on them. Unfortunately, Huey passed away. But before he did, he told his friend, anytime you're out hiking and it rains on you, that's me. And so from then on, this fellow, every time he was hiking and it rained on him, he would just look up the sky and yell, "Send her down, Huey." And Doug Bull reminded me of that story.
And yeah, he was a crazy, Doug was a crazy, goofy bastard. Would go stand out in the rain and yell at the rain to stop or just to scream. There's a story of him hopping over a fence and walking up to a bull because his name is Doug Bull. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I've got a connection with cows," and the cow licked him and scared the shit out of him, and he jumped and ran away from it. And yeah, it's just one of the stories. But in that, so there's also a scene that ties in with Doug when Doug's out there playing with the dogs. One of a friend's dog had passed away right before that episode, and we had not named the working canines in the story at that point. And I was like, you know what? Let's name them after dogs that are important to us. So PJ, short for peanut butter and jelly, was a good friend's pup. Actually, the pup was a good friend who passed, and and I was like, all right, guys, I need some more dog names. Ren, what can we do?
I mean, the obvious one
Was Sophie.
My first child.
And the other one was Hope, who was the dog that came into my life when I was a few months old and was there until I was 16. Hell of a dog, fought a bear for us. Did not know how to keep her nose out of porcupine quills, but she would walk down to the end of the road with us to get the mail and wait for us on the other side and then come back up. I swear we learned to walk holding onto her fur.
And also, hearts out to Danny, one of our good friends who just lost her companion.
first baby.
Oh,
Yeah. It's been a rough time for dogs.
She did the beautiful chibi art that's on our splash screen, and now that everyone's crying, which I was trying to avoid, I have to give you all presents again.
Wait, don't I get to talk about my NPC?
No!
Okay, fine.
One sentence, go, while I sort these out.
Here, I know who they belong to.
I got them.
Rosh.
Okay.
I loved what you did with that and actually making him a character and the difference in similarity between the two times we saw him. I loved that. And how just much I wanted to punch you in the face when he was like, "Oh yeah, I deserve that."
Fair enough. This was sent to us by one of our lovely followers. I believe this was from
Her real name is Jackie. She goes by Gremlin Lady in the Discord.
Yes, thank you,
Jackie.
Gremlin Lady.
I hope your lasagna turned out well.
I hope your toe
your
isn't
toe.
broken.
These are for all of you.
Yeet.
Making sure that I throw the right ones at the right people.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my god, they're tetrahedrons!
So-
And it says, "Damn it, Dan, thank you for caring for your players and checking on them. We're very lucky that you use your powers for good. Thank you guys for creating and sharing these characters with all of us."
These
They're
are
tetrahedron dice bags!
triangle shaped
Nice buttons.
dice bags.
Oh my god, there's a monster and a gun.
Mine has a coffee, pink glasses, and a bucket because her favorite scene, not to be outdone by any other fight scene, is the bucket on the head in the bar scene.
You got a bucket.
in Bar.
It's one of my favorite lines I've ever said in a game.
Bucket.
Oh, it's a book and a thing that says family.
I got hands, I got an eye, and I got an angry monkey.
Got a little paw print, the stethoscope, and then a TARDIS.
Oh, thank you very much.
This is amazing.
Thank you,
Thank
Jazzy.
you.
Which is even funnier because like the first time Rowan met Rory and said pick a code name and he said Rory, she's like, is that a Doctor Who reference?
I remember that.
Which is how we knew that those two characters were going to be friends.
Yeah.
I was in the car.
Yeah. You would have made some dumb joke about geek shit.
I did.
You can play with this and this won't make noise.
Yes, it will. It
Yes,
rattles.
well, it's already jingling.
That's
nice.
That's not mine.
So, Tiana.
Yes.
Every season, the editing and soundscaping continues to evolve in complexity and depth. This is the annual question. I think I was asked this by Agent Harold and maybe Leanna. IF already had it. There might have been one other person. I'm sorry if I'm forgetting to credit you guys. We appreciate everything.
Thank you for submitting questions.
Yes.
Every season, the editing and soundscaping continues to evolve in complexity and depth. Were there any new tricks, skills, or tools that you added to your toolbox this season that really made a difference? What were some of your favorite sounds or sequences to build this season? And what were some of your greatest challenges?
So one of the best things about the gig that I am currently working on is that I hang out in what we refer to as the Gremlin Corner with a sound person who is an amazing sound person in so many ways. I will tell a story later about how he saved my ass.
We have a story for next Talkback after next season that'll
So
be big.
pin that one because Alan literally saved my ass. I had, yes, anyway. But we were talking about some of the podcasting stuff and he recommended some plugins. Now, I am accustomed to working in Audacity, which comes with what it comes with. I'm not used to being able to add things to it, but it is a very modular system. So he pointed me at a very particular website with a whole bunch of different tools, and they've been incredibly valuable. One of them is a Bauer surround sound type of thing where I can set up a sphere and set the sound to roll around the listener's perspective. I used to have to do that manually. Now I can just do it. It's pretty great. Gosh, that's probably my favorite toys that I played with this season. I'm getting better at them. There's also, I love you guys very much. You all hit your S's. I do too, actually. We hit our S's very hard. So I got.
Sorry.
Yes, exactly. So I got a good de-esser. Game changer. Such a game changer. So, the quality of the editing has gone up over the last, even since the end of season 3. Like
You got most of these tools between 3 and 4. I remember very specifically. So
Didn't you get something that makes scrubbing so much easier now too?
yes, that was one of the plugins that I got. I don't use it a whole lot, honestly. Like I'm still dialing that one in because. Fun fact, as much as everyone likes to say that I'm very good at this, I am always learning. There is always something new to figure out. There's always something that I'm like, why did no one tell me about compression?
What's the line that the master just realizes they know how much they don't know?
That might be,
Or is it just that you're an editing eldritch being, which is what I'm starting to believe?
Call him B.
Let's also not discount, though, that, like, someone who is excellent at their craft, as Ren is, knows that there's always more for them to learn and always more for them to do. Did you have any particular sounds that were your favorites or anything that was a particular challenge to you that you
my favorite had to be Tearing the World Apart.
That was,
And that was largely, Dan actually found a lot of those sounds for me. So I started with... He started off with a ghost horse screaming, a hole ripping, and I don't remember what the third one was, but there were 3 sounds that you sent me very specifically. And I worked around that because I was like, well, if you just go straight into the like ripping sound, it's going to be too abrupt. So I added in the metal bending sound that is actually the beginning of the stairs falling under river back in season
the
2.
stairs.
Oh my goodness.
I kept that sound because that sound is fantastic for leading into that sort of thing. And then I was playing with the ghost horse. I put something else in twice. I think it was like the FM radio scream. But the ghost horse, Dan listened to it and said, "Can you make it longer?" And it's like, usually I don't like to change the length of sound effects because it distorts them. But I was like, oh, but that's perfect.
There's ever a time.
I kind of need to distort this one. So that was how that truly nightmare-inducing sound came about, which I'm very proud of. But it was also just a lot of fun in some of the simpler stuff, like layering the different ambiance. I know you hate the goats. I'm sorry.
It pings at exactly the right frequency that it makes me think my cat is having a panic attack.
I'm sorry. But I did really enjoy being able to layer sounds like the rain happening on top of with music underneath it and kind of layering those sounds because Fun fact, patrons, I'm very sorry. I'm behind on Rowan's reports. And I went back and specifically was listening to Idaho and the rescue to remember what the hell happened. It's been a while. And I was like, I've changed so much as an editor just since the beginning of Idaho. Just since then, because I was like, why did no one tell me these sounds were so loud? They're overwhelming.
We didn't know better.
Yeah.
Because I listened in the car, so I didn't have the right leveling.
Well, and that's exactly it. That's something else that my audio friend and I talk extensively about. You cannot balance it perfectly for everything that everyone is going to listen on. So a phone speaker is going to sound different than computer speakers, which will sound different from over-ear headphones, which will sound different from Apple AirPods, which will sound different from a car, so on and so forth, into eternity. So I had to just pick my 3 and be like, this is what I'm leveling for. And there were times where you guys were like, did the music disappear out of the intros? No, it's there. You're just listening on. It's just layered too quietly for you on the device you're on.
The world tearing apart is one of my favorite sounds that you've done. It's what I imagine in 7C, something that I wrote about. There's a power called Porte, where mages tear apart the world and teleport through, and that was the sound that I had, and we would talk about that, and we actually wrote about it in the game, and I'm like, I want this in our story. And Ren went, here we go, here, how's this sound? I'm like, it's perfect.
That's honestly one of my favorite things about Dan and my relationship as editor and director, handler, whatever you want to call it, is I make jokes frequently about making faces at him when he like very specifically describes the soundscape, but I also love it because it gives me somewhere to start.
You do make faces at him.
I do every time. It's become a bit now.
And even when she's not on the record, I can hear those faces because I know, and I even make a comment about it.
Yep.
He has a couple times.
Multiple times.
All right, we have to shift gears because I have several more important questions and we only have 15 minutes left. So, since I didn't get the hook I was hoping for, I'm going to do a very gross segue.
Sorry.
Because another thing, no, it's fine. I was
144 of them?
fishing for the option. And you didn't give it to me, which is there was something else that you edited this season that had a very different sound from anything else you've done, and you commented many times about what a pain in your ass it was.
Yes,
and
but also I love it.
And we got several questions about it, so this is where I'm going to talk for 3 minutes rapid fire, because I got permission to do that. We got several questions about the wedding episode. I'm using this as a commercial. Everybody's welcome. We offer some special benefits to our patrons, including some exclusive episodes. And this season, that exclusive episode was Paul and Andrew's wedding.
I got married.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Real quick, I am going to invite Joseph to join in with me on this a little bit to talk about where did the wedding episode originate from, and then I'm going to explain how I got involved with that.
Yes. I think it was something... After season 3, we found out from Dan, like, okay, season 4's happening this time. I'm like, okay, wait, if that much time has passed.
It was like a huge time jump.
Like, Rory's definitely married by now. So we decided just that it had happened, and then so we jumped into season 4, kind of had it already happened. We thought, okay, maybe later we'll go back and do something, we'll figure it out, and you Ren kind of left it in my hands what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Part of it was like, hey, we're going to do this. And I'm looking at all of the stuff that I had on my plate. And I'm like, there's no way in hell I could plot that out properly. I have really creative people around me. I'm going to step back from the table. Here you go.
Well, because initially there was a discussion. I remember this way back when where we were talking about, like, what is that game?
Yeah.
Is that, like, how do you use a Delta Green game for
eventually,
the
at
wedding?
one point, I think I was chatting with Leanna at some point, and we're like, what if it's a sitcom episode? And then with, like, all the wedding, you had every single wedding trope. Like, the big one was Chase has got it. I won't spoil it.
No.
Chase does some
Chase
things.
just Chase shenanigans. That's all you need to know.
Chase
there's
is
a
a
dog
good
and
boy.
there's a wedding.
Chase is the best boy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this was a patron exclusive episode, and this is where we reveal one big secret, the only big secret that shouldn't be that big of a secret if anyone's actually paying attention, which is that I have been in the Discord chat with these guys for months and months since before season 3 ended as Agent Harker, because I have been building the website and running the social media since the end of season 3. So I heard about this and I said, I'm a playwright. Do you want me to just write like a base
I said
script
yes.
that we can work off of and then we'll record it like an
Please.
audio drama?
I think he said yes before you finished asking the
Yes.
question.
Which is hard to do in text-based
And
format.
yet,
You
he
did
still pulled it
still.
off.
I did it.
Somehow interrupted my Discord message. Anyway, so Joseph and Leanna, who is Joseph's cousin and one of our great supporters, had come up with this wonderful list of tropes. I took that, I cranked out the fastest script I've ever written, and then I pitched, hey guys, what if we do this in a totally different style? What if we do this like a 1950s radio comedy? Just make it something completely removed from the rest of the game so that it clearly stands on its own. So if you're not a patron and you'd like to hear this episode and hear all of the suffering that Ren went through with a full cast audio drama.
There were
And you
20
should.
people
There were
involved.
20 people in a 1950s radio comedy style. Highly recommend.
It's so good.
It's amazing.
I'm very pleased with how it turned out and using and leaning into the 1950s style with like the fuzz, because I found a tutorial about how to make it sound like it was an old-timey radio. There was a lot of high and low pass filters involved, but that did help hide the fact that there were only 5 people on that call with a professional microphone.
Yeah.
That helped a lot because there were people who had the headset microphones, like what Seth used to have. There were people who had iPhone microphones. Like, we had everything because we called on a lot of favors.
Thank you so much, everyone who
We
helped.
truly
Yes.
appreciate it. It is genuinely one of the proudest things that I've ever been part of.
It was
Yeah,
so good.
I would
and
not
so
have been
much
able,
fun to
yeah.
do.
I would not have been able to do this at all without Alondra writing it and then Ren editing it. So
Anyway, so that's my 3-minute commercial for if you're not a member of Patreon, that's the sort of thing you can get. And I will say that there are plans that probably a lot of things will eventually be declassified. We don't want anyone to feel bad if you can't join our Patreon. It just means stuff like that you will have to wait a little longer for. And that's okay too. We appreciate all of our listeners and we appreciate everyone who participated in that particularly bizarre project that came together really fast on a whim in about 2 weeks.
It was very
it
short.
was very quick turnaround.
Oh.
And because I have the ability to say this, that was all canon.
They didn't tell me that before I wrote it. I would have done some things differently.
We didn't want you to have the anxiety.
Oh, I already had anxiety, but that's normal.
Real quickly about Declassified. If you haven't found our website yet,
Oh.
Yes.
at theredactedreportspodcast.com.
www.theredactedreports.com.
Yeah. Wait, are we on?
HTTPS
Yes, okay, good.
//
I don't know.
If you
I don't
type
remember
in
what it's called.
theredactedreportspodcast.com, it should just come up. It is also in all of our link
social
trees,
medias.
And somebody has thankfully dropped the command in
Thank you.
our Twitch chat already.
But what I was going to
Link
say
everywhere.
is the first of the supplemental case files, Safety On, which took place after Shrimp Farm, has been declassified if you want to go read that one.
Yeah.
The reason why I was laughing so hard is because after every week when I would read the credits, I did not include www.theredactedreports.com.
You just said www.theredactedreports instead of www.theredactedreports.
And it drove Joseph crazy. And I heard about it for weeks.
You thought his sanity loss was because of the lack of sleep. It was actually because of the missing word dot.
No.
Okay.
That's the manifestation. His sanity loss is because he works in a pharmacy. That's whole completely different.
Pharmacy loss is because he puts up with us. Don't even remain.
We're speeding through things,
gotta fix
but
this.
Popcorn.
we wanted to take a moment to answer that question because I thought it was an interesting question, and mostly because I wanted to make Ren talk about having to do this bullshit editing, but embracing it, and that was very outside of the usual style. We did also get a question about whether there will be future patron exclusives in that style. I don't know about that specific style, but I do suspect that we might keep up the trend of patron special episodes and other special things being a little bit different from the usual format because it's a fun way for all of these creative people to stretch their creative brains. Anytime you want updates on any of those kinds of things, because some of them will be patron exclusive and some of them won't be, please make sure you're following us on our socials and keep an eye on the website, which, yes, I am using as a very ham-fisted segue into the question you've all been waiting for because we have 8 minutes left, so everyone's going to be quiet until I throw the ball to them. Claire asked, what's coming next for the Redacted Reports? Thank you, Claire, for asking.
Thanks, Mom.
Guess
Season
what's-
5.
I literally just said.
Is it though?
Yes, the answer is season 5 is coming next. However, there were some other questions attached to that, many of which we will not be answering tonight because you need to just stay tuned and listen. But there is one big one that I am going to ask and allow the team to answer, which is this. Joseph. Rory's retired.
He is retired.
Spoilers. We've been saying spoilers all night. There is no more Agent Rory. It is
Yes.
now Paul, a friendly. What comes next for you?
Well, I'll talk a little bit about how that came about.
Yeah, please do.
It's after season 3, before going into end of season 3, I didn't really anticipate this happening soon. I knew eventually I'd probably want to do that. But then after the sanity loss and the sleeping disorder and everything kind of throwing him for a loop, I almost did it before season 4. I'm like, no, I really wanted to get that Afghanistan and tying in his backstory and everything. So it just made sense for the character at that point. But yes, I will be coming back. So you're not losing me.
No.
You are losing Chase. I'm sorry.
He's still a friendly too. It's okay.
He's still with Paul and Andrew.
The sound editor is okay with this.
But yes, so Joseph will be back in some capacity, and that's pretty much all we're going to say.
That's all we're going to say about that.
As far as season 5, you will be getting it, and it will be released when it is ready. That is the answer we have for you. We're taking a little bit of time off because all of these wonderful people need some mental space after a very heavy season. We need to give our handler time to get some things planned and plotted. You know, I don't know if you've noticed, we call you guys the red stringers because these things are really complex. And so sometimes that takes a little bit of time and planning. We also are enforcing some time for our singular editor to get a little bit ahead on things and also have some time for their own mental sanity because they won't take it if we don't make them.
You're not wrong.
So, we got 2! Congratulations,
Cheers.
everybody.
3. Joseph had one earlier.
Oh, that's right. Joseph did have one earlier. I'm sorry. I can't count. But that does not mean that you will be devoid of content. We're going to release the audio of this next week. So if you are not here live with us, that's the 28th will be the audio version of this talkback. Please drop your thoughts in the Discord. Yell at us for all the things that we didn't answer if you want. We're still not going to answer them, but you can yell at us there. And we're going to have a couple of mini arcs to tide you over in the meantime. We might even have a couple of special one-offs that tease some other new things that are happening. So please pay attention to our website, join us on our socials. Hop in the QNC Discord. If you are not there, you should hop in there. You can talk with us about Redacted Reports, and you can also see all of the amazing and horrifying offerings that Quest and Chaos has. They've got their own roster of shows and podcasts that are going to be going. We are so appreciative and grateful to Thomas and Amy for hosting us as part of their network, to Thomas, who is running the ones and zeros through his sleep deprivation right now, and through crashed internet at the top of tonight.
It's been a rough day.
And dealing with all of us.
Yeah,
Wow.
there's been a lot happening today. So thank you all for joining us. I will do a very brief, quick popcorn to everyone else if there's anything else that you want to say in closing remarks before I wrap us up.
I am really looking forward to the stories that we have ahead. We're going to see some new stuff. We're going to see new sides of existing characters. We're going to see maybe some old faces come back, some old voices come back. We're going to get some more backstory on some people that, because some people don't remember what their backstory was because they had amnesia. So we might get a little bit more on that. Please join us. It's going to be a good time. Thank you for being awesome.
Thank you all for enjoying this and giving us reason to keep I mean, I would just keep playing because I look forward to game. I have a really hard time when we're not playing.
Sure.
But I get it. But thank you all for joining us with this, because this has changed my life literally in many, many ways. And thank you for coming along on the ride with us.
Well, first I want to say, you did all listen to the interludes, right? So if you were paying attention there, you might have some hints.
It's like we planted clues for you to conspire about while we're dark for a week or two.
Ooh, Dan plants clues? No way. Oh, and to answer your question, yes.
Ah,
Okay.
all right.
Last time is next time. Current time is future. We're good. Don't worry about it.
You were saying, Seth.
I don't get
This
it.
is
I know what he's talking about.
this has been a trip. There's more I could say, but I'm going to let Thomas go to bed.
All right, we're going to do one quick roll of the giveaway while Tiana makes her last remarks. Then we'll announce
Yeah.
Just
Joseph.
did
Oh,
it.
and sorry,
This
I
is
can't
this
count.
is the craziest thing that's happened to me. So
Yeah.
this is wild. So
Today is September 21st. We have been playing this game now pretty much continuously through some incredibly high highs and some incredibly low lows for over 2 years now. We started playing, mid-August
2020.
of 2020. 2020, which was, of course, the year from hell. It hasn't gotten a lot better since then, but it has gotten better since then. And this game has been one of the things that has kept me sane throughout. And there are times when I regret saying, we have lightning in a bottle here, let's turn it into a podcast. But most of the time, almost all of the time, except for when I'm sleep deprived at 2 a.m. trying to find that one fucking sound effect I can't find. Most of the time, this is the best thing that has happened to me in a very long time. This has pushed me as a creator. This has pushed me to grow as an editor, as a player, as all of the list of things. And it's because of everyone around this table that it has been possible at all. And I cannot begin to thank you enough for being with me, with us, through the highs and the lows. And I'm so excited to see what comes next.
I think we're all excited to see what comes next, but unfortunately, all good things must wait, and all these good people must go to bed before they murder me. So thank you all so much for joining us for this unredacted report. We will see all of you in the Discord. Pay attention to our socials. We'll post some photos tomorrow of some of the various gifts and things that were distributed. Have a good night, y'all. Bye.